They say blood is thicker than water, but in the Romano family, blood is currency. And Isabella Castellano was about to learn that some debts can only be paid in flesh. The night it all fell apart started with champagne and ended with gunfire. Isabella was celebrating her gallery opening in Soho, her first solo exhibition as a curator. 5 years of work finally paying off. The space was filled with Manhattan's art elite, people who mattered, people who could make or break careers with a single Instagram post. She wore a black slip dress that cost more than her rent. Her dark hair swept up in a careless knot that had taken her stylist an hour to perfect. At 29, she'd finally arrived, finally proven that Isabella Castellano was more than just the daughter of a failed businessman, more than the girl from Queens who'd clawed her way to Columbia on scholarships and spite. She was sipping champagne and discussing a Basquiat piece with a collector when her phone buzzed. "We need to talk." Now, Marco, her brother, who she hadn't heard from in 6 months, not since their father's funeral. She ignored it, turning back to the collector. But the phone buzzed again and again. "Bella, I'm serious. Get somewhere private. It's about Dad's debts. You're in danger." The champagne turned to ash in her mouth. She excused herself and slipped into the gallery's back office, closing the door against the party noise. "Marco, what the hell? I'm in the middle of..." Dad owed the Romanos $2 million. Marco's voice was tight with fear. He'd been borrowing from them for years, using it to cover his failed investments, his gambling, his mistresses. And when he died, the debt didn't. Isabella sat down hard on the desk. $2 million? How is that even possible? He was desperate, and they prey on desperate people. That's what they do. But he's dead. The debt dies with him, right? That's how it works. Not with the Romanos. The debt transfers to the family, to us. That's insane. We don't have $2 million. I'm a curator, Marco. You're a teacher. We can barely cover our own rent, let alone. I know. That's the problem. Marco took a shaky breath. "Bella, they came to see me today. 3 men in suits. Very polite. Very clear. We have 2 weeks to come up with the money, or they start taking payment in other ways." Other ways? What does that mean? It means they own us. Our labor, our assets, our lives. Whatever they decide the debt is worth. That's how they work. Legal slavery wrapped in Italian silk. Isabella felt cold spreading through her chest. "We'll go to the police and tell them what? That Dad borrowed money from legitimate businessmen and we can't pay it back? The Romanos don't leave paper trails, Bella. Everything is verbal, handshake deals, old world honor bullshit. We have no proof, no evidence, nothing but their word against ours. And guess whose word carries more weight in the city? So what do we do? I don't know. Well, maybe change our names, disappear. They'd find us. People like that always find you." Isabella stood, pacing the small office. "There has to be another way. A lawyer maybe, or..." "Bella." Marco's voice cracked. "There's something else. They specifically asked about you." Her blood froze. "What?" "They asked if you were married, if you had a boyfriend, where you lived, where you worked. They were evaluating you." "Evaluating me for what?" Marco was quiet for too long. "Marco, for what?" "Dante Romano, the heir. Apparently he's in the market for a wife, and they think you'd be suitable." Their room spun. "You're joking." "I wish I was. They want me to marry some mobster to pay off Dad's debt? That's medieval. That's human trafficking. That's the Romano family. And if we don't comply, they made it very clear what the alternative is." Marco's voice dropped to a whisper. "They showed me pictures, Bella, of what they do to people who don't pay. I can't let that happen to you. I can't. Stop. Just stop." Isabella pressed her hand to her forehead, trying to think through the panic. "When do they want an answer?" "You have until tomorrow night. They're sending a car at 8 p.m. You'd have dinner with Dante Romano and discuss terms. And if I don't get in the car, then they come for both of us. And they don't ask nicely the second time." Isabella ended the call and sat in the silent office, listening to the party continuing outside. People laughing, glasses clinking, the world moving forward as if hers hadn't just imploded. She could run, drain her bank account, get on a plane, disappear into some small town where the Romano family's reach didn't extend. But Marco couldn't. He had a wife, a daughter. He couldn't just disappear. And even if they both ran, the Romanos would find them eventually. People like that always did. She pulled out her phone and did what she'd sworn she'd never do. She Googled Dante Romano. The images that came up were carefully curated. Society pages, charity galas, business acquisitions. Dante Romano, 34, heir to the Romano Group, a legitimate business empire that everyone knew was built on construction contracts, waste management, and various other industries that served as fronts for less legal enterprises. He was devastatingly handsome in that dangerous way some Italian men were: dark hair, sharp features, expensive suits that did nothing to hide the predator beneath. In every photo, he looked bored, detached, like he was performing for the camera but thinking about something far more interesting. There were no photos of him with women. No girlfriends, no romantic interests, nothing personal at all. Which made sense if he was in the market for a wife. A business transaction. That's all this would be. Isabella closed her browser and stared at her reflection in the darkened window of the office. Tomorrow night, she'd get in that car. She'd have dinner with a man she'd never met. And she'd negotiate the terms of selling herself to save her brother. Because that's what you did for family. Even when your family had destroyed your life. The car arrived at exactly 8 p.m. Isabella watched from her apartment window as a black Mercedes pulled up to her building. Sleek, expensive, tinted windows that revealed nothing. A man in a dark suit emerged from the driver's seat and stood waiting. She'd spent the day in a haze of disbelief and panic, called in sick to the gallery, ignored calls from friends asking about the opening, sat on her floor surrounded by her father's financial documents, trying to understand how he'd fallen so far into debt. The answer was depressingly simple: gambling, bad investments, and a desperate need to appear more successful than he was. Classic Italian patriarch, too proud to admit failure, too stubborn to ask for help. And now she was paying for his pride. She dressed carefully. A navy dress that was elegant but not sexy. Heels that added height without being provocative. Minimal jewelry. She wanted to look sophisticated, but not like she was trying too hard. Like she was going to a business meeting, not an auction. Because that's what this was. An auction for her life. The driver, a man who introduced himself simply as Luca, was polite and professional, opening the door for her, making small talk about the weather. He drove through Manhattan like someone who knew every shortcut, every back street, navigating traffic with practiced ease. They crossed the Queensboro Bridge into Long Island, driving through increasingly wealthy neighborhoods until they arrived at a restaurant Isabella had only read about in magazines, Marianera, an exclusive Italian establishment where reservations required 6 months' notice and connections that money couldn't buy. The entire restaurant appeared to be empty, except for one table. Luca led her inside, where a host greeted her by name and escorted her through the dining room to a private table in the back, positioned to overlook the water. A man stood as she approached. Dante Romano. The photos hadn't done him justice. In person, he was overwhelming. Tall, easily 6'2", with a kind of controlled power that suggested violence was always an option, but rarely necessary. His suit was bespoke, probably Italian, fitting him like it was part of his body. Dark hair swept back from a face that was all sharp angles and calculated cruelty, softened only slightly by full lips and surprisingly long lashes. But it was his eyes that stopped her. Dark brown, almost black, and completely unreadable. He was looking at her the way a jeweler might examine a diamond, assessing quality, checking for flaws, determining value. Miss Castellano. His voice was deep, lightly accented. Please, it. Isabella sat, and Luca disappeared. They were alone now, or as alone as you could be in a restaurant with staff hovering discreetly in the background. Dante sat across from her, still studying her face. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Finally, Isabella spoke. You know why I'm here? I do. And you're okay with this? Forcing a woman to have dinner with you because her dead father owed your family money. A slight smile touched his lips, not warm, but amused. Forcing is a strong word. You could have chosen not to come. Could I? Because from where I'm sitting, it seems like I didn't have much choice. There's always a choice, Isabella. You could have run. You could have gone to the authorities. You could have refused and dealt with the consequences. You chose to come. That's a choice. Some choice. Come have dinner or watch my family get destroyed. Exactly. A choice. Dante leaned back in his chair, completely at ease. You chose your family over your pride. That tells me something about you. I'm a coward? That you're loyal. Loyalty is valuable. A waiter appeared with wine. Expensive, already poured. Isabella didn't touch hers. Let's skip the pleasantries, she said. My brother said you're looking for a wife. Is that true? Direct. I appreciate that. Dante sipped his wine. Yes, it's true. Why? Why does any man seek a wife? Companionship, family, continuation of legacy. Bullshit. Men like you don't need to coerce women into marriage for companionship. So what's the real reason? Dante's smile widened slightly. Genuine amusement now. You're smarter than I expected. That's not an answer. No, it's not. He set down his wine glass. The real reason is succession. My father is 78. He wants grandchildren before he dies. Legitimate grandchildren from a legitimate marriage. And he wants me settled, focused on family rather than other pursuits. Other pursuits like organized crime, like expanding the business empire. But yes, my father prefers I direct my energies toward domestic matters rather than acquisitions. Dante studied her. He's traditional, old world. He believes a married man is a stable man. And you need me specifically because your father's debt provides leverage. A marriage without leverage is just romance. Romance is messy, unpredictable. This is clean. Isabella felt rage building in her chest. Clean? You're buying a wife with my father's gambling debts, and you call that clean? Cleaner than courting you conventionally. This way, expectations are clear. No one has illusions about love or affection. It's a business arrangement. You provide legitimacy and heirs. I provide protection and resources. Everyone understands their role. What if I say no? Then your brother pays his father's debt through other means. Labor, perhaps. Collateral. There are many ways to extract value from a family. That's extortion. That's business. The waiter returned with appetizers. Octopus carpaccio burrata. Things Isabella couldn't imagine eating while negotiating her future. Dante began eating, completely relaxed, as if they were discussing the weather rather than her forced marriage. Tell me about yourself, he said between bites. Your work, your interests. I should know something about the woman I'm considering marrying. Considering? I thought this was already decided. Not entirely. You're under evaluation. If you're unsuitable, we'll find another arrangement. What makes someone suitable to be your wife? Intelligence, discretion, the ability to navigate social situations without embarrassing the family, an understanding that our arrangement is professional, not romantic, willingness to provide children. He looked at her directly. Are you capable of those things? Isabella wanted to throw her wine in his face, wanted to storm out. Consequences, be damned. Instead, she said, I'm a curator. I've spent 5 years building relationships with artists, collectors, donors. I know how to navigate social situations. I know how to be charming while maintaining appropriate distance. I know how to present a public face that reveals nothing about what I'm actually thinking. Good. I'm also smart enough to know this is insane, that forced marriage is illegal, that I could go to the authorities and tell them what? That you agreed to marry me to settle a private debt? That's not illegal, Isabella. Distasteful, perhaps, but perfectly legal. Dante leaned forward. Let me be clear about something. I'm not forcing you. You have free will. You can walk out right now. But if you do, the debt remains, and debts must be paid. Those are the rules. Your rules. The world's rules. I didn't create them. I just understand how they work. Isabella picked up her wine and drank deeply, needing the courage it might provide. What would this marriage look like, she asked. Specifically, you would live in my home, attend social functions as my wife, provide heirs, at least 2 children, preferably within 5 years. In exchange, your brother's debt is forgiven. Your family is protected. And you receive an allowance sufficient to maintain the lifestyle expected of a Romano wife. An allowance, like a child, like an employee, which is what you would be. And fidelity? Do I get that? Or is this one of those arrangements where you have mistresses? Dante's expression didn't change. I would expect fidelity from you. Absolute fidelity. Any betrayal would have severe consequences. But not for you? I didn't say that. I said I would expect it from you. My own behavior is my own business. That's not fair. No, but it's honest. Dante signaled for the next course. I won't lie to you, Isabella. I won't promise love or faithfulness or any of the romantic ideals you might have dreamed about. What I will promise is protection, security, and a clear understanding of expectations. That's more than most marriages offer. That's the bleakest thing I've ever heard. That's reality. They ate in silence for a while. The food was extraordinary, wasted on a stomach too knotted with anxiety to appreciate it. Can I ask you something? Isabella said finally. Yes. Why not just hire a surrogate? Have your heirs without the complication of a wife? My father is traditional, as I said. Illegitimate children, even from surrogates, don't count in his worldview. The heirs must come from a sanctioned marriage. So this is all for him? To please your father? Partly. Also, marriage provides tax benefits, social legitimacy, business advantages. A wife is useful in ways a surrogate is not. You're talking about me like I'm a piece of equipment. You are a piece of equipment, a valuable one, but equipment nonetheless. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be. Isabella set down her fork, her appetite completely gone. And if I refuse, if I choose not to be your equipment? Dante was quiet for a moment, studying her face. Then I will respect your choice, he said finally. I'll have Luca drive you home. And tomorrow, my associates will visit your brother to discuss alternative payment arrangements. They will be less pleasant than I am, but that will be your choice to make. That's not a choice. That's a threat. Yes, but you still have to choose which outcome you prefer. The rest of the dinner passed in a blur. More courses appeared and disappeared. Dante asked questions about her education, her work, her family. Isabella answered mechanically, part of her still not believing this was actually happening. Finally, mercifully, it was over. Dante stood, signaling that the evening had concluded. I need your decision by tomorrow evening, he said. If you agree, we'll arrange the marriage quickly, within 2 weeks. I'll have contracts drawn up outlining expectations, compensation, terms of the arrangement. You'll have a lawyer review them if you wish. How generous. I'm not a monster, Isabella. I'm a businessman. I want this arrangement to work. That requires clarity, not coercion. Could have fooled me. Dante smiled, a real smile this time, transforming his face into something almost human. You have spirit. I appreciate that. Too much compliance suggests weakness. I need a wife who can handle the pressure of this life. I'm not weak. No, I can see that. He moved closer, close enough that she could smell his cologne, something expensive and subtle. One more thing. What? If you agree to this, you belong to me, completely. Your loyalty, your body, your future, all mine. I will expect absolute obedience in public and absolute honesty in private. In return, I will protect you, provide for you, and treat you with the respect due a Romano wife. But make no mistake, you would be mine. Do you understand? Isabella met his eyes, refusing to look away despite the intensity of his gaze. I understand that you think you can own people, but you should understand something too. I will never belong to anyone. Not you, not your family, not even myself. I'll play the role you need me to play. I'll fulfill the contract. But my mind, my heart, my soul, those are mine, and you can't buy them. Dante stared at her for a long moment. Then he laughed, genuine, surprised laughter. Oh, Isabella, this is going to be interesting. He walked her to the car, opened the door for her himself, a gesture that felt mocking rather than chivalrous. Tomorrow evening, 8 p.m., have your decision ready. Then he was gone, and Luca was driving her back to Manhattan, and Isabella was sitting in the back seat trying not to hyperventilate. She called Marco the moment she got home. How'd it go? He asked immediately. He wants an answer by tomorrow. If I say yes, we get married within 2 weeks. The debt is forgiven. You and your family are safe. If I say no, if you say no, we're both dead. Maybe not literally, but effectively. Marco, this is insane. We can't actually be considering this. What choice do we have, Bella? Really, what choice? Isabella sat on her couch, still in her dress, feeling the weight of the impossible pressing down on her. I don't know. I don't know. They talked for another hour, going in circles, examining options that didn't exist, looking for escape routes that weren't there. Finally, exhausted, Isabella ended the call and sat alone in her apartment. She pulled up photos of the gallery opening, just last night, though it felt like years ago. Her smiling, successful, free, living the life she'd built through sheer determination and talent. That life was over now. The question was, what would replace it? Isabella didn't sleep. She spent the night pacing her apartment, making lists of pros and cons, trying to find rational grounds for an irrational decision. Pros. Marco and his family would be safe financial security protection from the Romano family's reach and escape from her own struggling existence. Not that she'd admit that out loud. Cons. Marrying a stranger, marrying a criminal, losing her autonomy, becoming property, sleeping with him, having his children, living his life instead of hers. The cons list was longer, much longer. But the single pro that mattered most, Marco's safety, outweighed everything else. At 6 a.m., she went for a run through Central Park, trying to outpace the panic clawing at her chest. The early morning runners and cyclists passed in a blur, everyone focused on their own worlds, oblivious to the fact that hers was ending. She ran until her lungs burned, until her legs shook, until she couldn't think anymore. Then she sat on a bench overlooking the reservoir and called the one person who might understand. Bella? It's 6:30 in the morning. Are you dying? Her best friend, Kira had known her since Columbia. Kira was a corporate lawyer, brilliant and ruthless, the only person Isabella trusted completely. I need your legal opinion on something. Hypothetically. Nothing good ever starts with hypothetically. What's going on? Isabella told her everything. The debt, the dinner, Dante's proposal. Kira was silent for a long moment. Okay, first, fuck your dad for putting you in this position. Second, fuck the Romano family for being exactly as awful as everyone knows they are. Third, this is complicated. Can they legally do this? Force me to marry him to pay a debt? Force? No. But coerce? Create a situation where you have no realistic alternative? That's a gray area. Technically, you're choosing to marry him. No one is holding a gun to your head, literally, anyway. So legally, it's not forced marriage or human trafficking. It's just a really fucked up business arrangement. So I have no legal recourse. Not really. You could try to prove duress, but that's nearly impossible with families like the Romanos. They're too smart to leave evidence. Everything is verbal, implied threats, plausible deniability. Kira paused. Bella, you actually considering this? What choice do I have? If I say no, they go after Marco. What about witness protection? FBI? Someone must want to take down the Romanos. And I become the rat who destroyed my own family's debtor? Even if it worked, which it wouldn't. I'd spend the rest of my life looking over my shoulder. Marco's family, too. That's not living. Neither is marrying a mobster. No, but at least Marco's safe. At least his daughter grows up with a father. Kira sighed heavily. If you do this, and I really, really hope you don't, you need a prenup. A real one, ironclad, protecting your rights. You need guaranteed exit clauses, financial compensation, custody arrangements for any children. You need every protection possible in writing. He mentioned contracts. Then I'm reviewing them and negotiating the hell out of them. If you're selling yourself, you're getting top dollar and maximum protections. Understood. Understood. Bella, are you sure about this? Isabella watched the sun rise over the city, painting everything gold and beautiful and false. No, but I'm going to do it anyway. She spent the day at the gallery, trying to lose herself in work. But every painting looked different now. Every piece about freedom or rebellion or breaking free felt like mockery. Her phone buzzed repeatedly. Marco checking in. Her mother, calling from Florida, oblivious to the crisis. Friends wanting to discuss the opening. She ignored them all. At 7 p.m., she went home and changed into jeans and a sweater. Her most comfortable clothes, armor against what was coming. She wanted Dante to see her as she actually was, not the polished version she'd presented last night. At 7:55 p.m., the black Mercedes pulled up again. This time, Isabella walked out without hesitation. Luca drove her to a different location, a brownstone in the Upper East Side, elegant and discreet. He opened her door, gestured for her to follow, and led her inside. The interior was stunning, old-world elegance mixed with modern comfort. Art on the walls. Real art, pieces she recognized from auctions. Furniture that was expensive without being ostentatious. Dante's home, she realized. He appeared at the top of a curved staircase, dressed casually in dark slacks and a white shirt, no tie. Somehow he looked more dangerous like this, more real. Isabella, welcome. Is this where you live? One of several properties. But yes, this is my primary residence. Come up. We'll talk in my study. She followed him upstairs to a book-lined room that felt more like a library than an office. He gestured to a leather chair, poured 2 glasses of whiskey without asking if she wanted one, and sat across from her. Your decision? He asked simply. I need to see the contracts first. My lawyer will review them. That's not an answer. It's a conditional yes. If the contracts are fair, if they protect my rights, guarantee my safety, provide exit clauses and financial security, then yes, I'll marry you, on paper, for your father, to save my brother. But this will be a business arrangement, nothing more. Do you understand? Dante sipped his whiskey, considering. Exit clauses? Explain. If you break the terms of the agreement, if you're unfaithful in ways that violate our contract, if you're abusive, if you fail to provide the protections promised, I get to leave, with compensation, and the debt stays forgiven. And if you break the terms, then you get whatever remedy the contract specifies, within legal limits. You don't trust me. I don't know you. Trust is earned. Dante smiled. Fair enough. I'll have my lawyers draw up contracts. Your lawyer can review and negotiate. We'll aim for something mutually agreeable. And if we can't agree, then we find another solution. But I think we will. You're reasonable and I'm motivated to make this work. He leaned forward. Isabella, I want to be clear about something. I'm not trying to trap you. I'm offering you a role in my life that comes with significant benefits. Yes, there are obligations, but there are also protections, resources, opportunities. I need you to see this as the opportunity it is. Opportunity to be owned. Opportunity to be powerful. As my wife, you'll have access to wealth, influence, connections that would take you decades to build independently. You'll be protected by the Romano name. Your family will be protected. Your career can continue. I have no objection to you working within reasonable parameters. You'll live well, want for nothing, and eventually, when our arrangement concludes naturally, you'll leave with enough money to build whatever life you choose. When it concludes naturally, you mean when you're done with me? I mean when we've fulfilled the terms of our agreement. Children raised, obligations met, purposes served. Then we reassess. Maybe we stay married for tax benefits and convenience. Maybe we divorce amicably. But you won't be trapped forever, Isabella. That's not how I operate. Isabella drank her whiskey, feeling it burn down her throat. Why me? Specifically, there must be hundreds of women in your world who'd jump at this opportunity. Yes, women who want the Romano name for status, who'd spend my money frivolously and embarrass me socially, who'd see this as a romantic opportunity rather than a business arrangement. Dante stood, moving to the window. I need someone intelligent enough to understand what this is. Someone with enough pride to maintain boundaries. Someone who won't fall in love with me and complicate everything. You sound very sure I won't fall in love with you. He turned, raising an eyebrow. Will you? God, no. You're arrogant, controlling, and you're essentially buying me. That's not exactly romance novel material. Exactly. That's why you're perfect. He returned to his chair. I don't want a wife who loves me. Love is messy, unpredictable, prone to disappointment. I want a partner who respects the arrangement and fulfills her obligations professionally. You can do that. How do you know? Because you're here. Because you're negotiating rather than refusing. Because you're smart enough to see that this is your best option and practical enough to take it. He raised his glass. To business partnerships and honest transactions? Isabella hesitated, then clinked her glass against his. To surviving this with our dignity intact. I'll drink to that. They spent the next 2 hours going over expectations in detail. Dante was thorough, clinical, treating it like any business negotiation. Public appearances. She'd attend family functions, social events, business dinners. She'd be charming, appropriate, deferent to family hierarchy. Private life. Separate bedrooms unless conceiving children. Minimal physical contact beyond what was necessary for public appearances. Children. 2 minimum, preferably 3. She'd be expected to carry them, raise them with appropriate values, ensure they were educated and cultured. Fidelity. Absolute on her part. He was less committal about his own behavior. Finances. Generous monthly allowance, access to household accounts. But major purchases required his approval. Career. She could continue curating, but her schedule had to accommodate family obligations. The Romano family came first. Duration. Minimum 10 years, or until the youngest child turned 5, whichever came later. 10 years. Isabella's voice rose. That's insane. That's how long it takes to raise young children to school age. My father wants to see established grandchildren, not infants. 10 years ensures that. And then we renegotiate. Maybe we stay married. Maybe we divorce with a settlement that leaves you financially independent. But you'll have fulfilled your obligations, and the debt will be permanently forgiven. Isabella stood, pacing the study. 10 years. A decade of her life, sold for her father's mistakes. I need time to think. You have until midnight. After that, the offer expires, and we pursue other collection methods. That's 4 hours. It's plenty of time to make a decision you've essentially already made. Dante stood as well, moving to stand in front of her. Isabella, stop fighting the inevitable. You're going to say yes because you love your brother more than you hate the situation. So say yes now, and we can start planning rather than prolonging the agony. She wanted to hit him, wanted to scream, wanted to run. Instead, she said, I need my lawyer to review the contracts first. Tomorrow. If she approves, I'll sign. Fair enough. I'll have the messenger to her office first thing in the morning. He'll have her assessment by end of day. We'll sign tomorrow evening, and I'll announce our engagement this weekend. This weekend? That's 3 days away. I told you we're moving quickly. The wedding will be in 2 weeks, small family only, at my father's estate. Then a honeymoon brief for appearances. Then we settle into our new life. You have this all planned out. I'm a planner. You'll appreciate that once you're living here. Dante moved closer into her personal space. One more thing. What? Kiss me. Isabella's eyes widened. What? Kiss me. I need to know we have at least basic physical compatibility. If you can't bear my touch, this won't work. That's not in the contract. Consider it a pre-contract evaluation. Kiss me, Isabella. Prove you can fulfill this part of the arrangement. Her heart was racing. She wanted to refuse, to maintain this boundary at least. But he was right. If she couldn't even kiss him, how would she sleep with him? Have his children? She stood on her toes. He was tall, and pressed her lips to his. It was meant to be perfunctory, businesslike. But Dante's hand came up to cup the back of her neck, holding her in place, and the kiss deepened. His mouth was warm, skilled, coaxing a response from her, despite her determination to remain unmoved. When he finally released her, they were both breathing harder. Well, Dante said, voice rougher than before. That's promising. Isabella stepped back, cheeks burning. Don't read too much into it. It's just biology. Biology is all I need. Compatibility isn't about love, Isabella. It's about whether our bodies can cooperate in producing heirs. And based on that kiss, I think we'll manage just fine. You're insufferable. You'll get used to it. He walked her to the door. Luca will take you home. Expect the contracts in the morning. And Isabella? What? Welcome to the family. Curator's office was on the 45th floor of a glass tower in Midtown. All sharp angles and expensive views. Isabella arrived at 9 a.m. with coffee and dread, finding her friend already deep into the contract documents that had been delivered at dawn. This is... Kira looked up, her expression somewhere between impressed and horrified. This is actually really well done. Whoever their lawyer is, they're good. Is that supposed to make me feel better? Sit. We need to go through this line by line. Kira spread the documents across her conference table. 53 pages of legalese that reduced Isabella's life to clauses and subclauses. Section 1. Marriage terms. Okay, so the marriage itself is straightforward. You agree to marry Dante Salvatore Romano within 30 days of contract signing. The ceremony will be Catholic, his father's requirement. But you're not expected to convert. You just have to go through the motions. How generous. There's a clause here about annulment. Cura pointed. If either party wants out within the first 6 months and no children have been conceived, you can annul with a settlement of $500,000 to you and partial debt forgiveness to your brother. 1 million instead of 2. So I can escape early if I want. Yes, but you'd still owe $1 million. And Cura flipped pages. There's a penalty clause. If you annul, you're barred from any contact with the Romano family, which includes business contacts, social circles, etc. They'll freeze you out of New York's upper echelons. Career suicide for a curator. Of course there is. Section 2. Financial arrangements. This is where it gets interesting. Monthly allowance of $50,000. Deposited directly into an account in your name. That's yours, no questions asked, no receipts required. Isabella's coffee nearly spilled. $50,000 a month? Plus unlimited household accounts for groceries, staff, entertainment, children's expenses. Plus a clothing allowance of $100,000 annually, apparently. Romano wives have a standard to maintain. Plus full medical coverage. Life insurance with you as the beneficiary for $10 million. And a trust fund that vests over time. Vests. Every year you stay married, you get $1 million added to a trust you can't touch until you leave the marriage or it ends. After 10 years, that's $10 million plus interest. If you stay 20 years, it's $20 million. It's basically deferred compensation. He's incentivizing me to stay. Smart business. He wants you committed long-term, so he's making it increasingly expensive for you to leave. Cura tapped her pen against the contract. But here's the kicker. If you violate certain terms of the agreement, you get the full trust immediately, plus a $5 million penalty payment, plus the debt forgiveness stands. What terms? Physical abuse, failure to provide promised protections, abandonment, public humiliation. It's actually protective of you. He's putting his money where his mouth is. If he mistreats you, you can walk away wealthy. And if I violate the terms, you forfeit the trust, return any unearned allowances, and the debt comes back. But there's no financial penalty beyond that. You just lose what you haven't earned yet. Isabella absorbed this. Dante wasn't lying. He was offering real compensation, real protections. This wasn't just exploitation wrapped in legal language. It was actually fair for a fundamentally unfair situation. Section 3. Children. This section is detailed. Uncomfortably detailed. Cura grimaced. You agree to bear minimum 2 children, maximum 4, within 10 years of marriage. You'll receive full medical care, including fertility treatments if needed. You maintain bodily autonomy. You can refuse sex at any time except during designated conception windows, which are defined as your peak fertility days as determined by medical monitoring. You want to track my cycle? Apparently. But outside those windows, he can't demand sex. It's actually more protective than most marriages. He's agreeing he can't force you whenever he wants. How romantic. There's more. During pregnancy, you're exempt from most public obligations. You get additional allowance for maternity needs. You have final say on all medical decisions regarding pregnancy and childbirth. And this is unusual. He agrees that all children will be given your surname as a middle name. Castellano. They'll be Romano Castellanos. Isabella felt something catch in her throat. Her name, preserved in his children. It was a small thing, but it meant something. Custody arrangements, she asked. If the marriage ends, you get primary physical custody unless you're deemed unfit. And unfitness is defined very narrowly. Abuse, neglect, criminal activity. Not just we don't like you anymore. He gets visitation. He pays child support, generous support, 6 figures per child per year. But you're the primary parent. That's actually really generous for a man in his position. Usually guys like this demand full custody. Maybe he doesn't actually want to raise children, just produce them. Maybe. Or maybe he's being fair because he knows you'll take care of them better. Kira looked up. Bella, I hate this situation. I hate that you're being forced into it. But objectively as a lawyer, this contract is good. Really good. It protects you legally, financially, and personally more than most marriage contracts do. But it's still selling myself. Yes. But if you're going to sell yourself, this is top dollar with excellent protections. Section 4. Fidelity and conduct. Here's where it gets dicey. You agree to absolute fidelity. No affairs, no inappropriate relationships. No public behavior that brings shame to the Romano name. Violation means immediate termination, forfeiture of all benefits, and reactivation of the debt. And him? Kira flipped pages. He agrees to discretion in personal matters, which is code for I can have affairs as long as I'm quiet about it. That's not fair. No, it's not. But there's a caveat. If his infidelity becomes public knowledge, if it humiliates you or damages your standing, you can trigger the abuse clause and leave with full compensation. So he's incentivized to be either faithful or extremely discreet. I want to change that. I want a fidelity clause that applies to both of us equally. Kira made a note. I'll push for it, but Bella, be realistic. Men like Dante Romano don't usually agree to sexual exclusivity in arranged marriages. He might walk if you demand it. Then let him walk. And condemn Marco? Isabella slumped in her chair. This is impossible. Every choice is terrible. Yes, but some terrible choices come with $50,000 a month and exit clauses. That's better than most terrible choices. They spent 6 hours going through every clause, every subclause, every possible implication. By 3 p.m., Isabella's head was pounding and her coffee had gone cold. My recommendations, Kira said, creating a list. We negotiate for equal fidelity clause. Both parties maintain sexual exclusivity or the contract is void increased vesting schedule. $2 million per year instead of $1 million guaranteed continuation of your career with specific protected time for gallery work annual reviews of the marriage with option to renegotiate terms every 3 years clear definition of public humiliation. That triggers penalty clauses independent medical oversight for fertility treatments. No doctor chosen solely by him right to maintain. Separate residence if living together becomes untenable guaranteed therapy coverage for you and any children. No questions asked. You think they'll agree to all that? Some of it. We'll prioritize the fidelity clause and career protections. The rest is negotiable. Kira stood. I'll call their lawyer now and set up a meeting for tomorrow. We'll hammer this out. But Bella? Yeah. Are you absolutely sure? Because once you sign this, you're locked in. 6 months is a long time to realize you made a mistake. Isabella thought about Marco, about his daughter Sophia, who was 5 and called her Aunt Bella, and believed the world was safe. About the look in his eyes when he told her about the Romano threats. I'm sure, she said. I'm not happy, but I'm sure. The negotiation took place in a neutral location, a law office in Lower Manhattan, modern and impersonal. Dante arrived with 2 lawyers, both men in expensive suits who looked like they'd been litigating since before Isabella was born. Kira came with Isabella and an associate, and the 6 of them sat around a conference table like warring nations discussing treaty, which, essentially, they were. Let's start with the fidelity clause, Kira said, not wasting time. My client requires sexual exclusivity from both parties, not discretion, exclusivity. If Mr. Romano can't agree to that, we're done here. Dante's lead lawyer, a silver-haired man named Vincent Caruso, smiled thinly. That's not realistic for a man in Mr. Romano's position. Then he can find another wife. Isabella spoke directly to Dante, ignoring the lawyers. I'm not doing this, giving up my life, my autonomy, my future, so you can sleep around while I sit home raising your children. Either we're both faithful or there's no deal. Dante had been silent until now, watching her with those unreadable dark eyes. Why does fidelity matter to you? This isn't a love match. Because I'm not going to be humiliated. Because I have enough self-respect to demand equal treatment. Because if you expect me to honor this contract, you honor it too. All of it. And if I refuse, then I walk, and you explain to your father why you couldn't secure a wife. The room was silent. Then Dante smiled, genuine, almost admiring. Fine. Sexual exclusivity for both parties. I agree. Vincent looked like he'd swallowed glass. Sir, that's not advisable. I said I agree. Add the clause. Dante leaned back. What else? Kira blinked, clearly not expecting that easy a victory. The vesting schedule. We want $2 million per year instead of $1 million. No, Dante didn't hesitate. $1 million is generous. It stays. $1.5 million? $1 million? Or I reduce the monthly allowance to compensate. Your choice. Kira looked at Isabella, who nodded. Fine. $1 million. They went back and forth for 3 hours. Career protections. Dante agreed Isabella could work 30 hours per week at the gallery, but had to be available for family obligations. Negotiations settled on 35 hours with 2 weeks' notice required for major family events. Annual reviews. Dante agreed to formal check-ins every 2 years, not 3. Medical oversight. Agreed. Independent fertility specialist chosen by both parties. Separate residence clause. Denied. We're married. We live together. Non-negotiable. Therapy coverage. Agreed, with a caveat that therapists had to sign NDAs about family business. By 7 p.m., they had a revised contract. Vincent and Kira promised to have clean copies ready by morning. Everyone stood to leave. Isabella, stay for a moment, Dante said. Kira shot her a look. Isabella nodded. It's fine. I'll meet you outside. Once they were alone, Dante moved to the window overlooking the city lights. You surprised me today, he said. How? You negotiated well. Stood your ground. I expected more compliance. Then you don't know me at all. No, but I'm starting to. He turned to face her. The fidelity clause. That actually matters to you. Yes. Even though you don't love me? Even though this is just business. Isabella chose her words carefully. I don't love you, but I have pride. And I'm not going to be the idiot wife who pretends not to know her husband is cheating while everyone else gossips. If we're doing this, we do it properly, respectfully, or not at all. Dante studied her for a long moment. You're not what I expected. Neither are you. I expected more cruelty, more overt dominance. But you negotiated fairly today. Why? Because I want this to work. And it won't work if you're miserable and resentful. Giving you fair terms costs me nothing and gains me a cooperative partner. That's just smart business. Everything's business to you, isn't it? Not everything, but most things. He moved closer. We should have dinner. Get to know each other before the wedding. Why? We've already established this isn't a romance. No, but we'll be spending significant time together. We should at least be able to hold a conversation without hostility. He smiled slightly, considered networking. Despite herself, Isabella almost laughed. Fine, one dinner, but no more surprise kisses. I'll try to contain myself. The engagement was announced by the New York Times social section. Dante Romano, heir to the Romano Group, announces his engagement to Isabella Castellano, curator at the Castellano Gallery in Soho. The couple will wed in a private ceremony this month. Isabella's phone exploded. Friends. OMG, when are you going to tell me? Colleagues, what? How did this happen? Her mother. 20 missed calls and a voicemail that was just crying. And then the media. TMZ picked it up first. Mob prince finds his princess. Romano heir locks down art world beauty. Page 6 followed. Sources say the engagement was whirlwind. They met just 2 weeks ago. Friend described Isabella as shocked but thrilled. The truth was buried under layers of romantic narrative. No one questioned how they met. No one asked about her father's debts. The story became a fairy tale. Powerful man, beautiful woman, instant connection. Quick engagement, because when you know, you know. It made Isabella sick. The first family dinner was scheduled for Saturday night at the Romano estate in the Hamptons, a sprawling property that had been in the family for 3 generations. Do I curtsy? Isabella asked Dante as they drove out. He'd insisted on picking her up himself in a different car this time, a sleek Aston Martin that screamed money. Curtsy? No, my father isn't royalty, just extremely powerful. Dante glanced at her. Don't be nervous. They'll love you. They'll tolerate me, Because I'm fulfilling a requirement. Same thing in this family. He reached over and took her hand. The first, non-coercive, physical contact between them. His hand was warm, calloused. Isabella, some advice. My family operates on hierarchy and respect. Be polite, be deferential to my father and mother, but don't be weak. They respect strength. Show them you're capable of being a Romano wife. By doing what? By not flinching when they test you. Because they will test you. The Romano estate was magnificent and terrifying. A colonial mansion with modern additions, sprawling gardens, security that was visible but discreet. They pulled up to the front entrance, where a valet waited. Showtime, Dante muttered, and came around to open her door. He took her hand again as they walked inside, presenting a united front. The family was gathered in a formal living room that looked like it belonged in a museum. Isabella counted 12 people. Dante's parents, his 2 sisters with their husbands, various cousins, and an older man who radiated authority despite being in his late 70s. Salvatore Romano, the patriarch, Papa, Dante said, leading Isabella forward. This is Isabella Castellano. Isabella, my father, Salvatore. Salvatore stood slowly, with the careful movement of someone whose body had betrayed him, but whose mind remained sharp. He was shorter than Dante, weathered and scarred, with eyes that saw everything. He looked at Isabella for a long, uncomfortable moment. Then he smiled. Beautiful. Dante, you did well. Thank you, Papa. Salvatore took Isabella's hand, not shaking it, but holding it, examining her like a jeweler might examine a stone. You're nervous? Yes, sir. Good. You should be. Marrying into this family is not easy. We have expectations, demands. We protect our own, but we also hold them to standards. Can you meet those standards? Isabella met his eyes, refusing to look away despite the intensity. I'll do my best. Your best better be excellent. But he smiled again and released her hand. Welcome to the family, Isabella. Dante chose well. It was clearly a dismissal and an approval at once. Isabella relaxed slightly. The rest of the evening was a careful dance. Dante's mother, Francesca, was elegant and reserved, examining Isabella with the precision of someone used to evaluating assets. You're a curator? How artistic. I hope you'll have time for family obligations as well. Of course, Mrs. Romano. Family comes first. The right answer. Francesca nodded approval. Dante's sisters, Valentina and Giulia, were friendlier but clearly curious. Valentina, the older one, pulled Isabella aside during cocktails. So how did you really meet my brother? The news said it was at a gallery opening, but that seems convenient. It was arranged, Isabella said. Deciding honesty was easier than maintaining a lie. Our families had connections. We were introduced. It moved quickly from there. Arranged? Like an old-world marriage? Valentina's eyes lit up with interest. That's actually romantic in a fucked-up way. Dante's been avoiding marriage for years. Our parents were desperate. What made him finally agree? You'd have to ask him. I will. But for now, welcome to the chaos. And some advice. Don't try to change him. Men, like Dante, don't change. They just get better at hiding who they are. Noted. Dinner was formal. 12 courses, each paired with wine. Conversation flowing in Italian and English. Stories about family history and business victories. Isabella sat beside Dante, hyper-aware of his presence, his hand occasionally finding hers under the table in a show of unity. Toward the end, Salvatore tapped his glass. A toast to my son, who has finally decided to settle down, and to Isabella, who has agreed to marry him despite his many flaws. Laughter around the table. Marriage is the foundation of family. Family is the foundation of power. Welcome to our family, Isabella. May you give us many grandchildren and bring honor to the Romano name. Everyone drank. Isabella forced down her wine and smiled. Later, as Dante drove her back to Manhattan, he was quiet. You did well, he said finally. I survived. There's a difference. In my family, survival is success. He glanced at her. My father liked you. That matters. He doesn't like easily. I got the impression he likes assets, not people. You're not wrong, but you're an asset he approves of, which makes your life easier. They drove in silence for a while. Your family is Isabella searched for words. Terrifying? Overwhelming? Deeply dysfunctional. I was going to say intense. That too. Dante's hand found hers again. You'll get used to them, and they'll get used to you. Give it time. We have 10 years. That's plenty of time. Yes, it is. Something in his tone made her look at him, but his expression revealed nothing. The wedding was scheduled for the following Saturday. A rushed affair that would normally take months to plan, but that the Romano family's money and influence arranged in 10 days. Isabella spent the week in a daze of dress fittings, venue confirmations, meeting with the priest who would perform the ceremony, and who clearly knew this was a business arrangement but was being paid enough not to care, and enduring her mother's long-distance hysterics about not being involved in planning. I'm your mother. I should be there. I should be helping. It's complicated, Mama. The Romano family has specific requirements. Requirements? What about what you want? What she wanted was to run, but that wasn't an option. So instead she said, I want a simple wedding with people I love. He'll be there. Marco will walk me down the aisle. That's what matters. Her mother wasn't satisfied, but eventually she accepted it. The dress was chosen by Francesca Romano. Valentino, white silk, elegant and conservative. Romano wives don't wear flashy dresses. We wear timeless elegance. Isabella looked at herself in the mirror of the bridal boutique and saw a stranger. A beautiful stranger, polished and perfect and not herself at all. You look stunning, the saleswoman gushed. I look like I'm playing dress up. All brides feel that way. Not like this, Isabella thought. Not like you're putting on a costume for a role you'll play for the next decade. Friday night, Kira took her out for one last night of freedom. Drinks at a bar in the village. No family, no obligations, just the two of them. Last chance to run. Kira said, 3 martinis in. I have my car. We could be in Canada by morning. Marco. Fuck Marco. I love him, but fuck him. You're about to marry a mobster because of your father's gambling debts. That's insane. I know. So run. We'll figure out Marco later. Maybe witness protection. Maybe we pay the debt some other way. There is no other way. You know that. Isabella finished her drink. And honestly, I'm too tired to fight anymore. This is happening. Tomorrow I become Isabella Romano, and I'll just adapt. That's the saddest thing I've ever heard. Yeah, it is. They drank in silence. For what it's worth, Kira said eventually, Dante seems less awful than he could be. He negotiated fairly. He agreed to your terms. That's something. It's the bare minimum of human decency, which is more than most men in his position would offer. Kira flagged the bartender for another round. Look, I'm not saying this is good, but if you have to do it, at least he's not a complete monster. That's something. Setting the bar pretty low there, counselor. I'm a realist. Low bars are sometimes all we get. Saturday morning arrived with cruel sunshine. A perfect May day, warm and clear, mocking her with its beauty. Isabella got ready in a hotel suite the Romano family had rented. Hair makeup. The dress that cost more than 3 months of her old rent. Her mother cried through the whole process. Marco stood in the corner looking guilty and grateful and miserable. At 2 p.m., they drove to the church, a small Catholic chapel in the Hamptons, not far from the Romano estate. The guest list was tiny. Immediate family, only maybe 40 people total. Isabella walked down the aisle on Marco's arm, focusing on putting one foot in front of the other, on not tripping, on not crying. Dante waited at the altar in a tuxedo that made him look like a GQ cover. Handsome, powerful, untouchable, her future husband. The ceremony was in English and Latin, traditional Catholic rites that felt like chains wrapping around her. The priest spoke about duty and fidelity and the sacred bond of marriage. Isabella said her vows like an actress delivering lines. Dante said his with more conviction, looking directly at her. I, Dante Salvatore Romano, take you, Isabella Maria Castellano, to be my lawfully wedded wife, to have and to hold, from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do us part. The finality of it hit her like a wave. Death do us part. She was bound to him now, legally, socially, spiritually, according to the church. You may kiss the bride. Dante lifted her veil and kissed her, gentle, appropriate for the audience, nothing like the kiss in a study. Everyone applauded. And just like that, Isabella Castellano became Isabella Romano. The reception was at the Romano estate, elegant and controlled. Toasts were made, Salvatore welcoming her to the family, Dante's sisters offering sisterly advice, Marco giving a speech that nearly broke her because of how much he tried to make it sound happy. The first dance was to an Italian love song Francesca had chosen. Dante held her close, moving with surprising grace. "How are you holding up?" he asked quietly. "I've been better." "Honesty. I appreciate that. It's all I have left." His arms tightened slightly around her. "You have more than you think. You have my protection, my name, my resources. Those aren't nothing. They're not freedom either. No, but freedom is overrated. Security is better." "You sound very sure of that." "I am. I grew up with security, but no freedom. Every choice dictated by family obligations. I made peace with it. You will too. Or I'll spend 10 years resenting you." "Possibly, but you'll do it comfortably." He spun her, earning admiring looks from the guests. "Besides, resentment can be quite motivating. Channel it productively." Despite everything, Isabella almost smiled. "You're insane. I'm practical. There's a difference." The party ended at midnight. Dante's family departed with air kisses and knowing looks. Isabella's mother cried again. Marco hugged her so tightly she could barely breathe. "I'm sorry," he whispered. "I'm so sorry. I know. It's okay. It's not okay. But thank you for doing this, for saving us." That's what family does. When everyone was gone, it was just Isabella and Dante, standing in the massive foyer of what was now her home. "Your things were moved here this afternoon," Dante said. "Your bedroom is upstairs, third door, on the right. Mine is across the hall. You have privacy, space, everything you need. Except freedom. Accept that." He moved toward the stairs. "Get some rest. Tomorrow we leave for the honeymoon." "Where are we going?" "Lake Como. 1 week. My father's villa. It's expected." "Of course it is." Dante paused on the stairs, looking back at her. "Isabella, I know today was difficult, but you did well. You were exactly what I needed you to be. A convincing actress, a convincing partner. There's a difference." He continued up the stairs. "Good night, Mrs. Romano. Don't call me that. It's your name now. You'll get used to it." Isabella stood alone in the foyer of her new prison, wearing a wedding dress that cost more than a car, married to a man she barely knew, bound by contracts and debts and obligations she'd never chosen. She wanted to scream, to rage, to destroy something beautiful, just to prove she still could. Instead, she walked upstairs, found her bedroom, beautifully appointed, everything perfect and impersonal, and carefully removed the dress. Then she sat on the bed in her underwear and cried. Tomorrow she'd be strong. Tomorrow she'd face the honeymoon in the next 10 years, and whatever else this life demanded. But tonight, she let herself break. Just a little, just enough to survive. Lake Como was obscenely beautiful. The Romano villa sat on the water's edge, a centuries-old property that had been modernized with careful respect for its history. Marble floors, frescoed ceilings. Gardens that tumbled down to a private dock where a boat waited. It was the kind of place people dreamed about for honeymoons. Isabella hated it. They arrived Sunday evening after a first-class flight where Dante worked on his laptop, and Isabella pretended to read. A car met them at Milan's airport and drove them to the villa, where staff had prepared everything. Flowers in every room, champagne chilling, dinner ready. "We have the place to ourselves," Dante said as they entered. "The staff comes daily but doesn't live here. Privacy." "How thoughtful. I thought you'd prefer not to have strangers witnessing our adjustment period." He wasn't wrong. The last thing Isabella wanted was staff gossiping about the new Romano wife, who clearly didn't love her husband. Her bedroom was stunning. A suite with a balcony overlooking the lake, enormous bed with soft linens, bathroom with a tub the size of a small pool. Dante's room was next door, connected by a sitting room they'd apparently share. Unpack, rest. Dinner is at 8. Dante paused in her doorway. "And Isabella, try to relax. You look like you're about to shatter." "I'm fine." "You're not, but you will be. Give it time." Dinner was served on the terrace, pasta, wine, fresh bread, Everything perfect and romantic and wrong. Dante had changed into casual clothes, linen pants, a white shirt unbuttoned at the collar. He looked relaxed, almost human. Isabella had put on a simple dress, armor against intimacy. They ate in silence for a while. "We should talk," Dante said finally. "About expectations for this week. What happens here?" Isabella's stomach nodded. "Consummation isn't required until we're trying to conceive. That was in the contract." "I know. I'm not talking about that." He refilled their wine glasses. "I'm talking about actually getting to know each other. We're married now. We should at least be able to have a conversation." "We're having one now." "Barely. You said maybe 10 words since we arrived." He leaned back, studying her. "I know you don't want to be here. I know you resent this entire situation. But we're stuck with each other for the foreseeable future. We can either make it bearable or make it miserable. Your choice." "My choice? That's rich, coming from the man who gave me an ultimatum." "Fair point. Let me rephrase. We both have a choice in how we approach this marriage. We can be enemies trapped together, or we can be colleagues, partners in a strange situation. You want to be friends? I want to not hate our lives. That requires some baseline level of civility and understanding." He set down his glass. "So, tell me something real about yourself. Not the polished curator version. Something true." Isabella wanted to refuse, but the wine was good, and the lake was beautiful, and she was tired of fighting. "I wanted to be an artist," she said. "Not a curator. An actual painter. I was good too. Got into RISD for undergrad. But my father said art was a hobby, not a career. That I needed something practical. So I studied art history instead. Convinced myself that curating was close enough to creating." "Do you still paint?" "Sometimes. Late at night when I can't sleep. Nothing good. Just colors and shapes and feelings I can't articulate any other way." Dante was quiet for a moment. "The villa has a studio. 3rd floor, north side. Full of supplies. My mother used to paint before she married my father. She stopped, but the room is still there. You can use it while we're here." Isabella looked at him surprised. "Why would you offer that?" "Because you'll be less miserable if you have something creative to do. And your misery doesn't benefit either of us." He smiled slightly. "Self-interest, not kindness. At least you're honest about it." "Always." Over the next few days, they fell into a routine. Mornings, Isabella would wake early and paint in the studio Dante had mentioned. A sun-filled room with canvases and oils and charcoals. Everything she needed. She painted the lake, the gardens, abstract representations of feeling trapped in beautiful places. Dante worked in his study, handling business remotely, speaking rapid Italian into his phone. Afternoons, they'd explore the area, drive to nearby villages, walk through markets, have lunch at cafes. Dante was a surprisingly good tour guide, knowing the history of every church and villa, speaking Italian to locals with an ease Isabella envied. Evenings, they'd have dinner together and talk. Really talk. "Why did you agree to this?" Isabella asked one night. "Not the marriage specifically. I know your father wanted it. But why me? You could have found someone who actually wanted to marry you." "I told you. Clean transaction, no romantic complications. But you could have had both. There are women who'd jump at the chance to be Mrs. Romano, who'd give you everything I'm giving you plus actual affection." Dante was quiet for a long moment, swirling wine in his glass. "My last relationship ended badly," he said finally. "She was someone I cared about, genuinely, and she was murdered." Isabella's breath caught. "What?" 3 years ago. Her name was Elena. She was a lawyer, brilliant, beautiful. We'd been together for 2 years. I was actually considering proposing. The real kind, not the arrangement kind. His jaw tightened. Rivals found out about her. He used her to get to me. By the time we found her, it was too late. Dante, I'm so sorry. I killed the men responsible. Slowly. Personally. I promised myself I'd never put someone I loved in that position again. He looked at her directly. That's why you don't love me. You won't love me. So you're safe. If enemies come after you, it's just business. Not personal. Not... He trailed off. Not worth torturing you over. Yes. Isabella absorbed this. The cold calculation made horrible sense. He'd chosen her precisely because she meant nothing to him. because losing her wouldn't destroy him the way losing Elena had. It should have made her feel better. Instead, it made her unutterably sad. "That's the loneliest thing I've ever heard," she said quietly. "Lonely is safe. I learned that the hard way." On Wednesday, Dante taught her to drive the boat. "Come on," he said after breakfast. "You're going to spend summers here. You should know how to operate the vessel." "I don't need to know how to drive a boat. You need to know how to escape if necessary." That got her attention. Escape from what? From anything. Fire, intruders, whatever. You should always have multiple exit strategies. He led her down to the dock. Basic life skill for anyone in my world. The boat was sleek and fast, more powerful than it looked. Dante showed her the controls, explaining throttle and steering and safety protocols with surprising patience. "Now you try." Isabella took the wheel, feeling the engine's power thrumming beneath her feet. Dante stood behind her, hands guiding hers on the controls. Easy. Feel the water. Anticipate the movement. She accelerated, and the boat leaped forward. The spray hit her face. The wind whipped her hair. And for the first time since this nightmare began, she felt something like freedom. They spent 2 hours on the water. Isabella gradually getting comfortable with the controls, Dante occasionally correcting her technique, but mostly just letting her drive. When they finally docked, she was smiling, genuinely smiling. She couldn't find words. "Fun," Dante suggested. "Yeah, actually fun." "Good. You should have fun sometimes, even in captivity." He said it lightly, but there was an edge to it. "Is that what you do? Have fun to forget you're trapped?" "Every day." He helped her out of the boat. "My father controls the business. The family controls my choices. I'm as trapped as you are, Isabella. I just have a nicer cage. But you chose this." "Did I? Or did I just accept it earlier than you did?" He started walking back to the villa. "Either way, we make the best of it. What other option is there?" Isabella watched him go, something shifting in her understanding. Maybe they weren't captor and captive. Maybe they were both prisoners serving the same sentence. Thursday night, they got drunk. Not intentionally. They just kept drinking wine through dinner, through dessert, through sitting on the terrace watching the sun set over the lake, until the bottle was empty and they were both pleasantly buzzed. "I should hate you," Isabella said, feet propped on the terrace railing. "You're everything I should hate. Arrogant, controlling, you literally bought me. Technically, I'm resolving a debt. Buying implies I'll own you." Semantics. Important semantics. Dante topped off her glass with the last of the wine. "And for the record, you're everything I thought I didn't want. Stubborn, opinionated, completely unwilling to just go along with things." "Wow, compliments." "I'm not finished. You're also smarter than I expected. Funnier, more resilient." He looked at her. "I thought you'd break by now. Be crying, begging to go home, making this miserable for both of us. But you're adapting, surviving." Same thing. They sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only happens when alcohol smooths the edges of discomfort. "Can I ask you something personal?" Isabella said. "You're my wife. Everything's personal now. Do you actually want children? Or is that just for your father?" Dante considered. "I want legacy. Continuation. Something that outlasts me. Whether that's children or something else, I'm not sure. But yes, I think I do want kids. Eventually, when they're not just an obligation. What if they're terrible? What if they hate you? Then I'll deserve it. I'm not under any illusion I'll be a good father. But I'll provide for them, protect them, give them opportunities. That's more than many kids get. That's the bare minimum." "Yes, but I'm being honest about it. I'm not going to pretend I'll be some doting papa. I'll be adequate, hopefully." Isabella laughed, actually laughed. "God, you're depressing." "I'm realistic. There's a difference." "Is there?" "I can't tell anymore." Later, significantly drunker, Isabella asked the question she'd been avoiding. "When do you want to try? For children?" Dante had been pouring another bottle. Where it came from, Isabella had lost track, and he paused. "When I'm ready." That's not an answer. "It is, though. I'm not going to force you into my bed because the contract allows it. When you're ready, genuinely ready, not just resigned, we'll try. Until then, we have time. The contract says 2 years. Fuck the contract. I'm not sleeping with someone who's gritting her teeth and thinking of England. That's not. He set down the bottle. That's not what I want. What do you want? I want you to choose it. Not because you have to, but because you want to. Because you've decided I'm bearable enough to sleep with, at least for procreation purposes. He smiled slightly. I have my pride too. Isabella studied him. This complicated, contradictory man who'd bought her but wouldn't force her, who demanded loyalty but offered fairness, who calculated everything but still felt things deeply enough to protect her from his own desires. You're confusing, she said. I'm complicated. There's a difference. You keep saying that. About everything. Because it's true. Nothing in life is simple. Everyone who tells you otherwise is selling something. What are you selling? Safety, security, honesty about the terms. He met her eyes. I'm not a good man, Isabella. I've done things that would horrify you. I'll probably do more before this life is over. But I'm honest about what I am. That's worth something. Is it? You tell me. She couldn't answer that. Not yet. Friday morning. Isabella woke with a wine headache and vague memories of having said too much the night before. She found Dante in the kitchen, making espresso, looking annoyingly unaffected by the previous night's consumption. How are you not hungover? She demanded. Practice. Years of negotiating business deals over alcohol. He handed her a cup. Drink. It helps? She drank, grateful for the bitter heat. Did I say anything embarrassing last night? Define embarrassing. Dante, you told me I was surprisingly bearable for a mobster. Also that my eyes were stupidly pretty, and that you hate me slightly less than you expected to. Isabella groaned. Kill me. No need. It was endearing. He leaned against the counter. Besides, I told you that you were impressively stubborn, and that I respected your refusal to be broken. So even. We're drunk idiots is what we are. We're past tense. Now we're just hungover idiots. He smiled. Last day here. What do you want to do? Sleep until my head stops pounding? Done. After that? Isabella thought about it. Paint. I want to finish the canvas I started. Then paint. I'll work. We'll have an early dinner. And tomorrow we go back to reality. Can't wait, she said dryly. But part of her was dreading it. Here in this beautiful bubble, they'd found a strange equilibrium. Back in New York, with family and obligations and the weight of their arrangement pressing down. Would they maintain it? Or would they revert to strangers bound by contract? That evening, she showed Dante what she'd been painting all week. The canvases were abstract, all movement and color and feeling. Blues and blacks for the lake, sharp reds for trapped anger, gold for the moments of unexpected beauty. Dante studied them quietly. These are good, he said finally. Really good. You should show them. They're just therapy. They're art. There's a difference. He looked at her. If you want, I can connect you with galleries in Manhattan. People who'd show your work, not just curate others. Why would you do that? Because you're talented. Because having a wife who's a successful artist is good for my image. Because, he paused. Because you gave up a lot for this marriage. The least I can do is help you reclaim some of what you lost. Isabella felt something crack in her chest. The first real kindness he'd shown that wasn't calculated for mutual benefit. Thank you, she said quietly. Don't thank me yet. See if the galleries actually want your work. They will. Confident. I like that. Their last dinner in Como was quiet. Both of them contemplative. What happens now? Isabella asked. When we get back, we settle into life. You work at the gallery part-time. Start painting seriously if you want. I handle business. We attend family functions, present a united front, and generally convince everyone this marriage is legitimate. And at night, we live in the same house and maintain appropriate distance until we decide otherwise. You really meant what you said about waiting until I'm ready. I did. Why? Most men in your position would just take what they think they're owed. Dante was quiet for a moment, because I've seen what that does. My father treated my mother as a possession. She became bitter, resentful, eventually just numb. They haven't had a real conversation in 30 years. They just coexist. I don't want that. So he wants to be, what? Friends. I want us to be partners who don't hate each other, who maybe, eventually, respect each other enough to build something functional. That's all. That's actually kind of sad. It's realistic, and it's better than most marriages I've seen. He wasn't wrong. They flew back to New York on Saturday. The week at Como feeling like a dream already fading. At their apartment, Isabella corrected herself. She unpacked while Dante caught up on work he'd been ignoring. Her phone had dozens of messages. The gallery needed her, friends wanted updates. Her mother wanted to know how the honeymoon was. She texted back efficient lies. It was beautiful. We're back now. I'll call soon. Then she sat on her bed, her expensive, comfortable prison bed, and wondered if she could actually do this. 10 years. The first week had been harder and easier than expected. Dante was bearable, sometimes even likable. But he was still her captor, the architect of her forced marriage, the man who'd given her no real choice. Could she learn to live with that? Could she learn to live with him? She didn't know, but she'd made the deal, signed the contract, spoken the vow. The first month of married life was an education in compromise and coexistence. Isabella returned to the gallery 3 days a week, throwing herself into work with desperate intensity. Her boss was thrilled to have her back even part-time, and didn't ask too many questions about the whirlwind marriage. Dante was gone most days, handling business she didn't ask about and didn't want to know. They'd have dinner together maybe half the week, maintaining the appearance of a couple for the staff. The other nights, he'd text that he was working late, and she'd eat alone. It was civilized, distant, exactly what the contract promised, and it was slowly driving her insane. "You look terrible," Kira said, when they met for lunch 3 weeks after the wedding. "Thanks. That's exactly what every bride wants to hear." "I'm serious. You've lost weight. You're not sleeping. What's going on?" Isabella pushed her salad around her plate. "Nothing. I'm just adjusting." "Adjusting to what? Is he hurting you? Because if he is, contract or no contract, I will destroy him." "He's not hurting me. He's barely touching me." Isabella set down her fork. "That's the problem. We're living like roommates, polite strangers who happen to share a house. And I know that's what I wanted, what I demanded in the contract. But now that I have it, you're lonely. Pathetically lonely. I'm married and more alone than I've ever been." Kira reached across the table. "Bella, you can still leave. 6 months, remember? You can annul, take the partial settlement, start over. And Marco still owes $1 million, and my career is destroyed by the Romano freeze-out. And I've given up everything for nothing." Isabella shook her head. "I'm stuck. I just need to make peace with it." "How?" "I have no idea." That night, Dante came home early. Unusual enough that Isabella looked up from her book in surprise. "You're here." "I live here," he said dryly, loosening his tie. "Though I can see why you're surprised. I didn't mean—" "I know what you meant." He poured himself whiskey from the bar cart in the living room. "We need to talk." Isabella's stomach dropped. "About what?" "About the fact that this isn't working." "The marriage? It's been a month." "Not the marriage. The distance. We've been avoiding each other since we got back from Como, living parallel lives in the same house. It's not sustainable. It's what we agreed to. No, we agreed to a marriage of convenience, not to being strangers." He sat across from her. "I thought the space would make it easier. Instead, you look miserable. I feel like I'm living alone, and we're both wasting time pretending this is functional." What do you want me to do? We're not in love. We're not even friends, really. What's the alternative?" "We could try being friends. Actually try, instead of just coexisting." Dante leaned forward. "Isabella, I know this situation is shit, but we're stuck in it together for the next decade. We can either make the best of it or make ourselves miserable. I vote for the former." "And what would making the best of it look like?" "Having dinner together more often, actually talking instead of exchanging pleasantries. Maybe doing things together that aren't just obligations, movies, museums, whatever. Building something that's not just a contract." Isabella wanted to refuse on principle, but the loneliness of the past month had been crushing, and the idea of actually having someone to talk to, even if that someone was Dante, was appealing. "Fine," she said. "We can try, but I'm not promising anything. I'm not asking for promises. Just effort." They started small. dinner together every night, unless work truly prevented it. And not just eating, actually talking about their days, their frustrations, the things they found interesting or infuriating. Isabella discovered Dante was a cinephile, obsessed with classic Italian films she'd never heard of. He discovered she had opinions on everything and wasn't shy about sharing them. They started watching movies together, his choices and hers alternating. They'd argue about cinematography and plot and character motivation, debates that sometimes went past midnight. "You're wrong about Fellini," Isabella insisted one night. 8.5 is pretentious garbage. It's a masterpiece about artistic struggle and masculine crisis. It's a self-indulgent bore who thinks his midlife crisis is profound. It's insufferable. Dante laughed. "You just described half the male directors in history." "Exactly. They're all insufferable." It was stupid, meaningless, the kind of argument couples had when they were comfortable with each other. And slowly, imperceptibly, they were becoming comfortable. 6 weeks in, Dante took her to a charity gala, their first major public appearance since the wedding. "The key," he said in the car, "is to look happy but not overly affectionate. We're newlyweds, so some touching is expected, but we're also Romano at our new public displays. So touch you, but not too much." "Exactly. Hand-holding, arm around your waist, maybe a kiss on the cheek. Nothing more." The gala was at the Met, full of Manhattan's elite in designer gowns and tuxedos. Isabella wore Dolce & Gabbana, Dante's choice, classic and elegant, and felt like she was playing dress-up again. But Dante's hand on her back was steady grounding. He introduced her to dozens of people, business associates, family friends, rivals evaluating the new Mrs. Romano. She smiled, made small talk, played the role perfectly. "You're a natural," Dante murmured during a dance. "Everyone's impressed. I'm a curator. I've been schmoozing rich people for years." "Still, you could have made this difficult. You didn't. I appreciate that. Don't get used to it. I'm just building goodwill for when I really piss you off." He laughed, spinning her. "Fair enough." Later, when they got home, both tired and ready to collapse, Dante stopped her before she could retreat to her room. "Thank you," he said, "for tonight, for playing the part, for making this easier than it had to be. It's in my interest, too. If you look good, I look good. Still, thank you." He hesitated. "Isabella, I know this isn't what you wanted, but for what it's worth, I'm glad it's you. You make this bearable." Something in his tone made her look at him more closely. In the dim light of the foyer, he looked tired, almost vulnerable. "You make it bearable, too," she admitted. "Sometimes, when you're not being insufferable. I'll try to be insufferable less often." Appreciated. They stood there for a moment, something shifting between them. Not love, not even affection necessarily, but mutual recognition. Two people trapped together, making the best of it. "Good night, Isabella." "Good night, Dante." She went to her room, but for the first time, she didn't feel quite so alone. The pregnancy scare happened 4 months into the marriage. Isabella was late, 2 weeks late, and she was never late. She took 3 tests, hands shaking, all negative, but her body knew something was wrong. "You need to see a doctor," Kira said when Isabella called her, panicking. "Could be stress, hormones, anything, but you should check." The doctor confirmed what Isabella suspected. Not pregnant, just her body responding to extreme stress. "Your cycle has been disrupted. Totally normal for major life changes. It should regulate in a few months." But sitting in the doctor's office, facing the possibility of being pregnant, of having to tell Dante, of starting that part of their arrangement, had been terrifying in a way Isabella hadn't expected. She wasn't ready, not even close. She told Dante that night over dinner, "I thought I might be pregnant. I'm not, but it made me realize I'm not ready for that. For children, not yet." He set down his fork. Okay, that's it. What do you want me to say? I told you we'd wait until you were ready. You're not ready, so we wait. But the contract says 2 years minimum. We're only 4 months in. We have time." He refilled her wine glass. "Isabella, I'm not going to force you into my bed because you had a pregnancy scare. That's not how this works. But your father can wait. He's got time." Dante looked at her directly. Are you okay? You look shaken. The idea of being pregnant right now, trapped even more than I already am, losing my body to pregnancy while still figuring out how to live in this marriage. It terrified me. Then we won't. Simple as that. But it wasn't simple, because Isabella was realizing something unsettling. She'd started to care what Dante thought, started to want his approval, started to see him as more than just the man who'd bought her. And that was dangerous, because caring about your captor was the first step toward Stockholm Syndrome, wasn't it?